Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of Things I've Learned from Barry Harris. Today I thought we would start on a series of episodes discussing movement, or what Barry calls movement. So movement is basically from one chord moving to another chord and how we navigate through it with scales. So today I thought maybe a movement that's important that comes up a lot is the movement going from major to the relative minor. So major is obviously the one chord, and the relative minor is the sixth chord. Now we get there in a very specific way. Usually it's the one chord, and we'll choose the key of F just to discuss it. So it's F major 7 or F major 6, whichever you prefer. Then you play the 7 chord of the key, which in this key, in F, would be E minor 7 flat 5. Then you're going to play the 3 chord, but you're going to make it a dominant. So let's say we'll just make it an augmented also. We'll have a sharp 5 in there. So in the key of F, it would be F major, then E half diminished, or E minor 7 flat 5, to A7, going to D minor. That's our movement. So now how do you practice that? Okay. So the first thing we have to know, a piece of information, is how long for each chord. So let's say if we take Charlie Parker's Confirmation, which is a standard, and it's a song that uses this exact movement right at the beginning in this exact key. So it would be F major for a measure, and then a half a measure of E minor 7 flat 5, and a half a measure of A7 going into D minor. So it's really like a full measure of F, then a half a measure of E half diminished, half a measure A7 going into D minor. The way Barry approaches it as a teacher, what he does is he says, okay, let's play our scales for that. So with that amount of time, we would have F major up. And then for the E half diminished to A7, he sees that as not A7 like a normal A7, because it's like a 2-5 going to a minor. So he sees that as C7 scale down to the third of A. So he'll play a C7 scale down from the 7th and ending on the third of A. So now you have this. And as a guitar player, you should probably know it in a few different spots. You know, or even here, or even here, just in the one octave. So before you go any further with trying to work on things, as a guitar player, you should probably be able to play those two little scale passages, which would be an F major scale up, always go up to the major 7th only, not to the tonic, and then a C7 down from the flat 7th to the third of A. And the third of A is C sharp. So right there, that's one thing you should practice before you go any further. Once you get that and you get that comfortable in your instrument, now we can move on and progress to try to create some phrases with it. So we can use a lot of the theory that Barry's already given us to maybe come up with some things to do. So something that we play on a major, let's say we came up a triad from the tonic. So there's our first phrase. So maybe we'll say, so let's try that. So that would be starting on F major, and that's starting on the end of the first beat. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So all I did there was I played a triad up from the tonic, and now I started my C7 scale down. Now when I got to the third of the A7, I played up a diminished, and then just came down the scale to the third and then the tonic of D minor. So we put something together. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a phrase. Now that's starting off the beat. What if we started on the beat? Let's see. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. So to make it right, I put in an eighth note triplet. So we said 1, 2, 3, 4. Also a nice phrase. And simply using the same two scales, the F major scale, I'm sorry, three scales, F major scale, C7 scale down to the third of A7. Came up a diminished. These are little things that you start to piece together to create improvising lines. So now, let's start, let's say, on the fifth. Just to see what that's going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was just starting on the fifth. Well, let's say I did. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't remember what I did the first time, but see, there's all little ways to get down to the third of A. That's a nice note to get down to. Or I could have started thinking right away, since we're going to C7 down to the third of A, I could have started on what is the fifth of F, but instead of the fifth of F, I'm thinking of it as the tonic of C7. And we know from previous episodes that the tonic of C7, or a tonic of any dominant, you can run the scale down and put in 1/2 step between tonic and 7. So there we go. Now we're down to the third. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's try now 1/2 step again, but right on the first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, again, just using those 2 or 3 little elements that we've already worked on, which is being able to play F major scale, C7 scale into the third of A. The rules for C7 scale with half steps, and we're already using them. Things that you do when you get to a third of the A7, which is like coming up a diminished, or, you know, which is, so instead of playing, you could have played. So let's try that. So that was just a pivot, which, remember, a pivot is just taking a thing, starting on a note, and instead of playing up, you play those notes, the rest of the notes, an octave lower. So instead of playing, you play these, and now you start an octave lower. So that's another pivot. We could have done that too. But you see, just practicing all this is just one movement. Practicing one going to the relative minor, which happens in a lot of standards. Now, certain songs also you practice one going to the relative minor, and it's a little bit longer. Like if we were in the key, let's just change keys for a second. We'll go down a whole step to E flat, and so There Will Never Be Another You, which is in E flat. But There Will Never Be Another You has the same changes to it. The only difference is it's twice as long, the movement. So the E flat major, or E flat 6, is going to be for 2 measures. Then you're going to have 1 measure of its 7 chord, which is D minor 7 flat 5. And you're going to have 1 measure of G7. So now you have a little more time to play something on each thing. So you have to be able to space your time out and feel what that feels like. Okay, I got 2 measures of E flat now. So I can play really a more complete or full phrase, as opposed to what I was playing in confirmation, which I only have 1 measure. So now this is 2 measures of that. So you'll see there are songs that have going to the relative minor. Sometimes you get 2 bars of something to run into it. Sometimes you only get one bar of something. So these are all things you have to be aware of and practice and feel what that feels like. How does this feel like to play an E flat major for a full 2 measures before I get to thinking about D half diminished to G7? So in this case, the scales would be E flat major, but instead of only going up, you have to go up and down because you have 2 measures of it. Sorry. And here, since you have a measure of D minor 7 flat 5 and then a measure G7, it's going to be B flat 7 up and down to the 3rd of G. So let's try that. So it's going to be E flat major up and down, B flat 7 up and down to the 3rd of G. So let's hear what that sounds like. Then we're going to end on C minor. So in this case, you have a lot longer time to play your E flat major phrase and then a lot longer time to mess around to get down to the 3rd of G7 if that's what you want to do, to play that scale. So let's try a few phrases like that. Anyway, so that would be playing into the relative minor, but you're having a full 2 measures. How about if we do something 5-4-3 or something like that? So let's try that. So let's see, let's try that again. So let's see, which one did I do there? I came down 7, I put 2 half steps. And then when I got down to 5, I did 5. Then I did 4. So let's see. So even after I did 4, let's see, 5. I also did 3. So at that time I did 5, 4, and 3. There you go. Came down to the G. But see, you have to learn to feel that length of time. 2 bars of this, a bar of this, or a bar of this, or just 2 bars of this, 2 bars of this, or just say, leave it all. I'm not even going to say anything on E flat, and I'm immediately going to think of going to this change right away. So I'm going to anticipate that change. I'm going to start thinking about that right away. And let's see. What if I started on, let's say, C, which is the 6th of E flat, but it's also the 2nd of B flat 7. So let's say if I did 2 half steps, let's try that one. But I got to come into it right. So let's say, see, I was thinking the whole time B flat 7 running into G7, the whole time. Or let's think of it this way. Let's say 2 no half steps. 1, 2, 3. See, that's just playing again, just thinking B flat 7 the whole way to G7. I know it's kind of difficult to get the idea because you also have to have the chords in your head at the same time, so you have to be thinking this the whole time. Sorry. But so you have to be hearing that in your head while you're playing those changes. And then the opposite is true also. Your line should be letting the listener hear those changes. So that is the true art of improvising. It's being able to not only play with rhythm and everything in your head, where you can even just play by yourself. You don't even need anybody to accompany you. Then you know you're really doing it right. Or the opposite is true, where you also have to be able to think of the chords in your head and say, okay, let me make this clear for myself. Where am I in the song? Where am I in the bar? Am I in the third bar? Am I in the fourth bar? Where am I in the beat? Am I in the second beat? Am I in the third beat? I know these things can be a little bit overwhelming when you're first starting, or even as an intermediate, it can be a little overwhelming. And you know, as musicians, our idea is to just strive to get better. But I honestly feel like if you break things down to these type of things, which is, well, I'm going to learn how to play a movement. I'm going to learn how to play from 1 to relative minor. I'm really going to practice that. I mean, there's an endless amount of things you can practice on that. We didn't even get into tritone or anything like that because the video would last for an hour at least. But this is the idea. You take one movement and say, okay, today I'm going to practice going to relative minor. And the reason that you do that is because it comes up in so many songs. This is one of the reasons that Barry considers the standards these perfect vehicles for soloing. Because they are. They truly are. They're perfect vehicles for soloing. That's why Charlie Parker used them. That's why Dizzy used them, and all the great, the great improvisers. John Coltrane, all the great improvisers use these to solo on. So, okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to continue in this fashion for the next couple of episodes, just to get maybe a foundation for you to start improvising, maybe using some of the things that we've learned in our scale ideas in the past, like from a major scale or from running a dominant scale or playing diminished, and see if you can really put it together when playing changes or playing on a song, or as Barry calls it, playing movement. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing your comments and hearing what you have to say about it. Okay, anyway, until next time, thanks.